leaders are facing lots of challenges. And we know from the research that the biggest impact on a school or a classroom is the teacher, but the biggest impact on a school is the leader. And right now, in some places, Rome is on fire. So it really is.
Yes.
And, we can't just keep talking about things like there's no fire. And I used this analogy earlier, and I talked about it on a different platform. Somebody mentioned, in a school, when the leader coughs, the rest of the school, the rest of the building catches a cold. So if we're not taking care of our leaders, and I'm talking about now from the state standpoint, from the legislature standpoint, and the district standpoint, if we're not taking care of our leaders, then all we're doing is a house is on fire. They're in there with the suit on and with the hose, and they're putting out the fire. And if we're coming in with a clipboard with no suit and no hose saying, oh, well, the curtains in the living room are burning, this bedroom is on fire, that is not helpful. So we really have to support leaders, not telling them things that they already know, not going in to do an analysis of what we know is there, but really give them true help, true support. And right now, I see a lot of people put in the comments social and emotional learning, and we can't just talk about the social and emotional learning of the children. We've got to support social and emotional with the leaders and the teachers as well. We have to support our adults so that our children can truly be supported in schools. And I'm not sure that that is happening everywhere. Tammy, from your perspective as a leader, what do you need right now to say that you're really receiving support? What does that feel like? Because sometimes I don't think we ask the right questions.
Right. And see, I think it really depends on what the need of the school is. Like right now, I need just some moral support with we've
Mm-hmm.
opened, and I am doing everything I can to make sure that the teachers stay encouraged, because the one thing that is different about this year, that I think we came into the year a lot less prepared, because I don't know, maybe assumed that things were just magically going to go back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're seeing in our schools that is very disheartening and frightening to teachers is a high number of cases where students are being infected with the virus. You're muted, Shika.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning, Shika. Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
So we hope that you enjoyed that. That was just one of our previous episodes for the intro. I was looking for something and said, you know what, we have 108 other episodes. We can find something where we were talking about something relevant to today's topic. So welcome to the Real Academy with the Leadership Doctors. I am Dr. Sheikah Houston.
And I'm Dr. Tammy Taylor, and we are your leadership doctors, as we are affectionately called by Principal Kafele. And we're here each Saturday morning at 10:30, following Principal Sean Hurt, who's on at 10 and did an incredible job this morning talking about the main thing and keeping the main thing, so that we don't get distracted and off point, because we allow other things to steal our focus. We are, again, your leadership doctors, and we are with Create and Educate, which is a literary and consulting firm that allows us to come to you as consultants, as authors, as guest speakers, as leadership doctors, to provide support in whatever area of leadership you need it. We support schools, we support churches, we support districts, leadership teams. And what we do in our work is a large part of it is in making sure that the generational study is something that we are helping leaders to wrap their minds around so that we can close those gaps that we're seeing that have begun to exist in our workplaces and in our churches. We also want to make sure that we're helping leaders to keep it real. And the way that we keep it real is through our real resiliency framework that you see at the top of the screen. We have created this framework that brought us out of state sanctioned school improvement, and our real acronym stands for respect, excellence, accountability, literacy, and leadership. And we use that framework to work with schools, districts, churches, whomever, so that we can help you to further your work.
Most definitely. And why do we do what we do? Just as Principal Hurt talked about this morning, people are hurting in our industry, in the industries where people have looked to schools and churches for the most support in the communities. And we're finding that education as a whole, with attracting people to the field and our the way that we've had so many vacancies this year. The churches where they're having people missing from their congregations, the institutions as we used to know them, they need help. And so, just as we needed help as leaders when we were going through the school improvement process, and just as Principal Hurt told us this morning, there's a lot of leaders who need help in school improvement. And a lot of times, just as you heard from the intro, that support, the way that it's needed, is not being provided. So that's what we do. We are the help that we know that is needed, that we needed. So if you are a leader, and if you need support with improving your school or your leadership practices, that is what we specialize in. And good morning again to everyone joining in. Shout out to Principal Law, September, Melissa, Principal Hurt, Stacy, Arcella, Dr. Roz, Josh. Thank you all for joining us. Dana, I love the doctors. That was creative, as Principal Law stated. Good morning, Central, and good morning, Miss Dot. We appreciate our real family joining us each Saturday, and welcome to episode 109, where today we're going to be talking about what are people learning from your leadership. Principal Hurt told us this morning about keeping the main thing. And people learn things from you, regardless of whether you're trying to teach them a lesson or not. Um, as people, we teach people how to treat us. We teach people what we accept, what we don't accept. That's why I hate when people say, oh, you're a teacher. I could not do your job, because essentially, our behaviors as human beings, we are always teaching people something. So we are all, in essence, teachers. But now, what we are not, everyone is not an educator. So, as educators, we are definitely informed in our pedagogy to inform our craft. So, this morning, we are asking the question, what are people learning from your leadership? And if you are in leadership and you have not reflected on this, you've got to do that. Principal Kafele has told us for 175 weeks, because that's what he's on right now, 175, to get your mirrors out and reflect as a leader on your practice. So that's why we're asking this question this morning. What are people learning from your leadership? Now, as a leader, I asked myself, good morning, Principal Kafele, this question multiple times, because if you're not reflective as a leader, number one, you're not going to grow. And you don't just have to be reflective yourself, because perception is everything. You have to ask yourself the question and be real about it. And you also have to get what other people perceive that leadership as, because everything is relative. People experience things based on their experiences. So if you may be intending for something to come across a certain way, but that might not be how everybody felt it. So if you're not getting feedback from people, you will also not grow. You can be reflecting on something and thinking it's great, honey. I did that thing, I did that, and everybody else is mortified. So you really have to be reflective, but you also have to be collaborative in that you're open to receiving communication about what's going on as well.
Definitely. You have to make sure that you're leading in a way that makes your reflection a part of what's normal at your school. One of the things that I do when I get new staff is everybody on my staff has their own mirror. And I give that as a gift in their onboarding packets that they receive when they come in, because reflection is an expectation. Like I model it. So I want to make sure that everybody else is reflecting. Like I want you to help me to reflect. Yes, reflect on how I'm leading you, but you also need to be reflecting on how you're leading your class.
That's right. And I'm glad that Mr. Stewart asked this question. He wants to know, exactly who we're talking about. We're going to be talking about this from a district level leadership standpoint, school level leadership, classroom level leadership, home leadership, because we have a lot of parents who tune in as well, and then student level leadership. So there are multiple levels of leadership. The students lead their lives, and we know that we never get that self efficacy or that student efficacy if we don't bring them into the fold. So everyone is a part of this because we all have responsibility in leadership, especially when we're talking about at the school and the home levels. So, the first thing when I've reflected on my leadership that I would say, I would hope that was being portrayed, is that I was a visionary. I had a clear vision for my school and my community. So I had a clear picture of what I wanted that to look like. Our focus at that point was growth, but there was a certain way that I wanted people to see my school, my students, and my community, because for a very long time, because we were a school of promise, as Dr. Marcus Jackson has called, instead of Title I schools, we replaced that with schools of promise. People sometimes will make you invisible, or try to make you irrelevant based on your zip code, or try to make your children or your teachers or your school feel as if they do not matter. So that was the goal. The goal was that everyone saw my school, my students, my community the same way that I saw it. And it is a very strategic way that you have to go about doing that. But the first thing is that you have to have a vision. And one of the things that I would like to put out to school board members, because we are talking about district level leadership as well, when you are trying to attract leaders for your district, because people see leadership and they see the things that are attractive about it, they see the influence that is there, they see that it will give you some form of power. Sometimes instead of attracting people with a vision, you will attract people that have an agenda. So if you are a school board member, what is it about your process for attracting or selecting a superintendent for your district? What are the ways in which you are weeding out that a person has the right vision for your community, for your students, for your district, versus this is another notch on my belt because I wanted this on my resume? What's the difference? How are we determining how we're getting people with a true vision that's right for our community and our schools and our districts versus an agenda? And as a leader, you have to make sure that that's what you have, that you have a vision, and that this is not just a thing on your resume that you wanted to do. Oh, I've reached my 5 years in the assistant principalship. Now it's time for me to be a principal. That's not what being a leader is about. So that first thing for me was visionary. What was yours, Tammy?
Well, just to stay there for a second, because I think it's really important that as a leader, when you go into the space of your school, your district, whatever it is that you're assuming that leadership role for, you really do have to have some idea of where you're headed. Because if you don't, you get tangled up in what somebody else sees for you, or as you said before, pushing your own agenda. And one of the things that I can say is, having gone into a new community when I became a principal, I did not know exactly what my vision was going to be. My vision for the school was to take it to the next level of excellence. Well, once I got there and had an opportunity to assess the situation, then I realized, you know what? My vision is a great one, and I aspire to get there someday. But I have to rewind. Like, I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board here, because I'm going to have to bring in these stakeholders. We're going to have to build this vision together in order for us to move this school forward. We can't just push the vision that I've come down here with. What we're going to have to do is, I have a vision, and I know how to help get you where we need to go. But I've got to get these folks bought into or committed to this whole process, because you don't know how people are perceiving you or your vision until you are right there in the middle of that. And what happens when you go into a school where you don't know the people and the people don't know you, you first have to establish some trust. Like, they have to trust that this vision is for them and not for you. Because if you don't, then you get exactly what you described before, Shika. And I love that. Like, we have to know that my vision is the vision that lines up and links up to the needs of this place that I'm serving, or you end up in a hot mess. Now, the thing that I can say, that I think is a strong part of my leadership, that I think people draw from me, is my adaptability, that resiliency, my flexibility. Like, I'm not a rigid leader. I lead, and I pay attention to what is happening at the time. And I think because I'm a responsive leader, the staff and even my students recognize that I'm leading in the moment. Like, I don't push the agenda. I might have a plan, and I always come prepared with a plan, but I am flexible enough to adjust and adapt to what needs to happen in order to make the best decisions for what we need to do as a school. And I think that is something that not only is my staff learning, but they're teaching the students to be able to adapt to the situations as they happen. And so you don't see a whole lot of ruckus. Like, if you come down there and it's one of those weather days, you don't everybody's not falling apart. Like, we're pretty steady with the way that we are approaching the situation. They are looking to me from where I'm sitting for the overall leadership, but they also know that they have enough autonomy to be adaptable in their classrooms to do what they need to do to meet the needs of their kids. So I
Mhm.
think that's one of the strongest parts of the leadership process for me, that I think my folks have really garnered my strength from.
And I agree. And I also am one of those. I read the room. That's something I think you and I both have in common. Like Melissa talked about, is trust mates. We learn from each other, and you do have to have that shared vision, and it has to match, like you stated. And you all are putting up some great comments. We only have 5 minutes left, and this is going to be a series because we're talking about this from so many different lenses. So, what you talked about, Mr. Stewart, we're going to get to that in one of our next points, and we might not make it to it today, but we have that definitely on the list because you're right on point. But the next thing that you must be, and I think that as reflecting as a leader, this was something that I was also able to do with my staff. You have to be a unifier. So again, from that school board perspective, how are we selecting leadership for our districts that unifies districts versus a person that is,
Divisive.
divisive? Yes, that's not what we need. We need for things to be unified. And the best way to model that as a leader is to be collaborative. We have our system just the way that is set up through the accountability model. It pits people against each other as if there is a prize for making a certain report card rating. And we even see it in our own district to where people are unwilling to share because that might put you on my level. Well, what's the prize? If we're both excellent, what is the prize that I'm gonna get over you for me being excellent and you being excellent? There is no prize. So we can all be great together. There is no
Definitely.
prize for one getting it before the other one. We can all be great together. But as a leader, you have to be able to make that your expectation as district level leadership. We're not putting things out there for people to be divisive against one another because we're not going to get anywhere that way.
Definitely. And one thing I think is important for us just to footnote here as we close this up, and maybe we can pick this back up next week here. But one very crucial aspect of that is not just what is the prize for both of us being excellent. What's the prize for you being excellent and me being unsatisfactory? You are a part of this same district, and you are only going to be as good as the worst school in your district.
Mhm.
I had to bring that mentality to the teams at my school when I got there. You can't compete with the people on your team because you are only as strong as your weakest teacher.
That's right.
We are in this together so that we are able to make an impact overall. Like the school's data is the school's data, so it does not matter if every single child in my class passes and everybody else in the school fails, because guess what, we still fail, and
Exactly.
nobody's going to see anything about you and your 30 children. We have to change our mentality about this divisiveness that is encouraged in the competition. I love healthy competition. I'm an avid sports person, but competition has its place.
Exactly. And, just as we started off with, you have to have that vision, not just when you're talking about classroom teachers. It's just not about the vision for the children in your class that you're serving. We have a whole vision for the entire school community, for the entire community. What are we leading people to become? And if we're saying that we're leading people to their greatness, then you got to care about every child in the building, not just the ones in your classroom. We got to care
Exactly.
about what type of people they're going to be.
For
So when
sure.
you have that true vision that is for people, you got to have a heart for children. You got to have a heart for teachers. You got to have a heart for people. When your heart is in the right place, your leadership is going to lead you to the right places. So that is a good place for us to close. And
And
it is.
Miss Dot, we are so glad that you are on the mend. We are praying for you and
Yes,
your
we
recovery.
definitely have been. Most definitely. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to
Thanks,
continue
guys.
this series. Please jump on next with us with Principal Kafele, and on Sundays with Unlock the Middle with Josh and Dean, Tuesdays with Dr. Roz and Coach Williams, and come back here next Saturday, starting off with Principal Hurt at 10 o'clock and us at 10:30. We are creating educate. We create spaces that thrive. So we hope that you all continue to thrive on this Saturday. Thank
Definitely.
you.
Happy
Have a
Saturday,
great,
guys. And happy Labor Day. I hope everybody's off Monday.
yes, have a great day.